こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材はリーズユナイテッドの田中碧に関する動画です。今回の動画は、ジャコブ・ホーフォールチャンネルから初めての動画で、バーンリーのファンのチャンネルであるものの、田中碧がなぜ素晴らしいのかをまとめた動画を作成されています。動画の中でも言っていますが、まだリーズファン以外で田中碧について騒いでいるのは多くないかもしれませんが、彼も言っているように、リーズファンが大騒ぎしているのを、他のチームのファンにも気づかれているといった状況のようです。動画の中では多くのスタッツも取り上げており、データ的にも田中碧の素晴らしさがわかる内容になっています。実際にどのように話しているのか、早速チェックしてみましょう。
Leeds United have unearthed a hidden gem for absolute pennies in the most recent summer transfer window as they signed Tanaka from Fortuna Dusseldorf in the German second division. Now, don't get me wrong, Leeds probably have the best squad in the championship. Pound for pound quality, they are a 1000% up there. But the player that they signed for just over £3 million according to Transfermarkt may be their best performing player this season. Therefore, in today's video, we're going to sit down and talk about the brilliance of Leeds United's Japanese midfielder, Tanaka. We're going to be going through the way he controls and dictates games for Leeds. We're also going to be going through the part of his game that sets him apart from every other midfielder in the division. And we're also going to be looking at why he's so important to statistically the best pressing side in the championship. It's time to talk about the Premier League midfielder somehow knocking about in the English second tier, Tanaka. I want to start off by talking about Tanaka's biggest asset, the thing that really lifts him above the other midfielders in the division. Tanaka's passing range is absolutely sublime. His passing and chance creation statistics are absolutely out of this world. The Leeds midfielder sits in the highest percentile for pretty much every aspect of passing when compared to other championship midfielders. He sits in the top 3% for passes attempted, the top 2% for passes completed, the top 4% for passes into the final third, and the top 4% for progressive passes with a whopping 8.2 progressive passes per 90. That stat is absolutely mental. The man that sits at the top of the list for most progressive passes per game in the championship is Hayden Hackney with just over 11. But you see everyone raving about Hayden Hackney, if we're honest. I think so many people rate him for his ability to do similar things to what Tanaka does, to be honest. However, Tanaka doesn't get maybe the credit he deserves for being so good at completing such a wide range of passes and offering that bit of chance creation and progressive play as well. Tanaka's ability to provide those incisive passes consistently is absolutely massive for Daniel Farke's Leeds side, as not only does his wide passing range with him sitting in the top 2% of championship midfielders for short passes, the top 3% for medium passes, and the top 9% for long passes allow Leeds to control games due to their ability to move the ball in many ways with efficiency. It also adds a little bit of creative spark in that midfield, which I think, although Leeds, again, the midfield was still bloody brilliant last season, was maybe missing to this level anyway. But I think something that is massively overlooked when we kind of analyse central midfielders, and a lot of people, just general football watchers, overlook it massively. You see a midfielder that puts out a lot of passes, and I mean Tanaka puts out a lot of passes and so many different variations of passes like we've already touched on. But people don't really understand, or maybe not understand, but don't notice the footballing IQ and brain that is required to play these types of passes consistently. And not only is that about just finding your teammates' feet, it's about having the ability and the creative spark and the idea to see that pass and create opportunities. Tanaka sees the game at half the speed of what we do. He sees things before anyone else, and that's what makes him absolutely exceptional. Last season, Leeds really struggled to break down low blocks, and I mean really struggled. They seemed to just come completely undone whenever a side sat deep and didn't give them much space to exploit in behind, which is where their forwards really thrive. Therefore, the arrival of Tanaka in this recent summer and the skill set he brings is and has already been a pretty big game changer. Now, anyone that follows me on pretty much any platform, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, even Instagram, knows I'm not Daniel Farke's biggest fan. But I'll hold my hands up and say that I do think, although Leeds have still struggled a little bit against low blocks, Leeds losing to Burnley, who did sit deep, losing to Blackburn, losing to Millwall, who all sat very deep, I do think that Leeds' ability to control games and dictate play while still offering a lot of creative threat has definitely improved. And I think Tanaka is a big part of that because of his passing ability and his way that he progresses the ball so quickly and so often, whilst also being able to create a few opportunities from them deeper positions he picks up. However, as I did say before, Leeds still haven't been perfect against low block sides, and it's definitely the thing that really could be the make or break for Leeds getting promotion this season, is if they continue to struggle against low block sides. But I do think that in the long run, Tanaka will massively help out Daniel Farke's issue with breaking down low blocks. If we look at this sequence here, Tanaka receives the ball, he takes 2 touches and then instantly plays an outrageous ball that goes through 6 different Plymouth players before finding the feet of a Leeds player just outside of the 6-yard box. Now I'll be honest, I could be massively reading into this here, and I think a lot of people will just look at this as a hopeful cross into the box, but I really do believe that from the games I've watched of Tanaka and the kind of deep dive I've done into him for this video, I think these sequences of play aren't too rare for him. He can play quick 1-2, sometimes 3 touch like there, and he will get the ball out his feet, but he will also find a man. It's not a hit and hope with Tanaka. He's constantly scanning. He knows where his teammates are at all times, hence him completing so many passes. And I think this kind of sequence that we just saw there massively shows the way in which he finds the feet of players so quickly. But he's not just someone that does things in the attacking phase of play. Tanaka's role isn't solely just about how he can progress play forward and make things happen in an attacking sense for Leeds. He's so much more than that. Daniel Farke sets up with that double pivot, with one of the two being slightly deeper in possession to orchestrate play and the other one extending further forward to attack the box as more of a classic number 8. This means that the deeper midfielder has the job of controlling the tempo of the game, spreading play, picking out the movement from what at times becomes a 6-man front line, and also winning the ball back nice and high, so that if teams try to counter, it's shut down immediately and Leeds can maintain constant pressure on the opposition's defence. That role really requires someone who can read the game really well, can understand the state of play, and make sure that Leeds don't get dragged into a game that's 100 miles an hour. It means that that player there must read the game in order to just slow it down when it needs to, dictate the tempo, get your foot on the ball, turn backwards, back to the centre-back, get it back, spread the play. And I really think that that role of just being the dictator, the controller of games, suits Tanaka brilliantly. I mean, for example, this season he's averaged 90.63 touches per 90, with him also sitting in the top 2% of championship midfielders for mid-third touches per 90. That role that I'm kind of talking about there of being the mid-third controller and preventing teams from getting out by just controlling the game and dictating the tempo, them stats there about him having a lot of touches in the mid-third and just all-round touches, I think kind of shows Tanaka's importance to not just the attack, but the preventing of oppositions attacking them because of the way he controls games. Moving on from Tanaka's kind of passing range and his ability to control games through his ability to play beautiful passes consistently, Tanaka's other standout trait, I think, is the way in which he receives the ball, because he receives the ball really often and he constantly evades pressure. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not talking about someone who's getting pressed constantly. We're talking about Leeds United here, and they dominate the ball in the majority of games they play, and we know that the majority of sides do just like to drop off and sit deep when they're up against Farke's side. However, that doesn't mean it's not incredibly handy to have a midfielder who can receive under pressure in all areas across the pitch. If we look at Tanaka's heat map, he occupies practically all areas of the pitch, barring the final third. His role as that controller that I mentioned earlier means he has to be able to operate in all of these parts of the pitch, whether it's the first phase, the mid-third, and even encroaching into the final third. The Japanese midfielder is so press resistant, it's untrue. He can play 1 and 2 touch to avoid being dispossessed, with him being dispossessed just 4 times in over 1,100 minutes of football, but he can also receive on the back foot and evade pressure by manipulating the ball and dropping a shoulder. I mean, he sits in the top 2% of championship midfielders, 4 carries per 90. I think Tanaka as a player is massively used to just control games in almost every single action. Them stats there about the carries and also the fact that he's very rarely dispossessed. I think it's something like 0.32 times per 90, which isn't a hell of a lot. It means that he's not a safe player. I'm not saying he's safe, but I feel like he's a safe option to pass to, if that makes sense. I'm not saying Tanaka himself plays safe, but the players that find him, you can trust him. You know he's not going to do anything stupid every single week. And I think Daniel Farke used them as almost a ploy to just control the game. Tanaka's actions as a whole are all about just controlling the game for Leeds and maintaining the dominance that they have over sides. And to be honest, he does that to a level that I think is very, very rare that you see in the Championship. I mean, for this season, for example, you've maybe got Vinny Souza, who does the defensive work, but maybe isn't as good as Tanaka on the ball. So I think to see someone at this high level of controlling games is so rare for the Championship. Continuing this idea of him being that game dictator and controller, for someone so small and seemingly skinny and fragile, Tanaka does a really good job of imposing himself on the opposition. Now, I don't mean that with any disrespect, but I feel like when you look at Tanaka and you look at the build he's small, he's got that low sense of gravity, he's not massively stocky, yet he's still seemingly really strong, and he holds the ball so well, which is, again, why he's hard to dispossess, because he still uses his body so well. I mentioned before that Tanaka is the deeper of the two midfielders when Leeds have the ball, and his duty is to prevent teams from getting out of the situation Leeds put them in. Farke wants to trap teams in and prevent any escape, and his 26-year-old midfielder is a huge part of that. In the Championship this season, Tanaka has won 1.66 tackles per 90. He also sits in the top 14% of midfielders in the Championship for dribblers tackled. On top of that, he averages 1.42 interceptions per 90 and averages 6.39 recoveries per 90. As I said before, I think Leeds do want to kind of pin teams in and keep them around their own 18-yard box, and although, don't get me wrong, on the counter, Leeds are bloody deadly. If they can get space in behind, you just pray that your keeper's on form today. But that's obviously not sustainable just playing in transition for Leeds, I don't think. So when they have the ball, they do often look to trap teams in, which Tanaka facilitates brilliantly, because being able to recover the ball so often is absolutely massive. And on top of that, although he does win a high volume of tackles, only 36% of them come in the defensive third, with the rest of them coming in the mid and attacking third, which again, I think proves my point about his importance and his role is massive in Leeds pinning teams high up the pitch. The only issue I think you could possibly have with Tanaka is maybe his height and the inability to win aerial duels as a result of that height. He's won just 0.55 aerial duels per 90 this season, but to be honest, as much as you would probably prefer that figure to be a bit higher, I don't think for Leeds in this season particularly, it's that big of a deal. I don't think it's too kind of, it's not going to affect them too much to the point where you think, wow, we need someone bigger in there, because he makes up for it in pretty much every other action. I mean, we can compare him to Ethan Ampadu, who can play as that number 6, and I know last season, I believe it was, he played as a centre-half a lot of the time, and I know Daniel Farke was a big fan of him. And, you know, maybe Ethan Ampadu offers a little bit more out of possession. He probably does offer a little bit more of a solid base if you were to sit a bit deeper. But does he bring what Tanaka does in possession and that ability to play such a wide variety of passes? I'm not too sure, and I'm not discrediting Ampadu's passing range there or what he can do with the ball, but I just don't think it's as to a high level as our Tanaka, and that's more so just a credit to Tanaka. And it's something that kind of creates a bit of a debate for me, and if Leeds fans are watching, let me know in the comments what's going to happen, because I'm looking at it now. Joe Rothwell has been brilliant. He's been really good. He was good for Southampton last season, and now he's playing really well for Leeds. You've got Ethan Ampadu, who I believe is injured, or who has been injured, so then you imagine he comes back fit. You've also got Ilya Gruev. When he comes back fit, you've got 4 midfielders there who would start for majority of Championship sides. What do you do? Because, you know, you could move Tanaka further forward into that number 8 where Rothwell's played a lot of the time and play Ampadu as the 6, but can you drop Rothwell? Does he not deserve to keep that spot? I'm not too sure. So Leeds fans, let me know what you think the dynamic of that midfield could look like when everyone is fit. Now, to round things off, I know Leeds fans absolutely adore Tanaka, because the reason I started watching him was because I saw his praise constantly, exclusively really, by Leeds fans. A few weeks ago I noticed it and I said I was going to watch him more closely, and I have done, and now this is where the videos come from. But I think that I don't see many more people outside of Ellen Road really talking about him. I think that's really unfair, because he's a top player. And a lot of Leeds fans have said they've got a Premier League midfielder kicking it out in the English Championship. And I think that's probably quite right. He's one of the most underrated players in this division. He does so much for Leeds. And without him, I do think Leeds would be a bit worse off in terms of their actual performances. Maybe not results because that squad's a joke, but in terms of how they control games, Tanaka is massive. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have enjoyed today's video, please do leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
次は解説です。アクセントは少し独特な感じはしますし、オーフンをオフトゥンと発音するタイプのようでしたが、皆さんはどのように感じたでしょうか？なかなか使えそうな表現も多かったので、今日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。Leeds United have unearthed a hidden gem.
アニアースは掘り出すや発掘するという意味を持ち、考古学の分野では地中から遺跡や遺物を掘り出す行為を指し、一方で比喩的に使われることも多く、隠されていた事実や価値、あるいは才能を発見する際にも使用されます。この言葉は見逃されがちな魅力や潜在能力を見つけ出すことを強調したいときに最適です。
Leeds United have unearthed a hidden gem. Leeds United have unearthed a hidden gem. Pound for pound quality.
パウンドフォーパウンドは直訳するとポンドごとに1ポンドあたりでという意味になりますが、比喩的に使用され条件を揃えて比較した際の相対的な評価を意味する表現です。特にスポーツの場面でよく使われ、異なる条件の選手やチームの実力を公平に評価する際に使われます。また、コストパフォーマンスや全体的な価値を測る際にも使用されます。
Pound for pound quality, but you see everyone raving about Hayden Hackney.
レーブは特に何かを大絶賛する場面でよく使わ、みんながその映画を絶賛しているといった状況で使用されます。一方で、怒り狂って叫ぶという逆の意味や、大規模な音楽イベントのレーブを指す場合もあります。
But you see everyone raving about Hayden Hackney. Which is where their forwards really thrive.
スライブは、成功や成長を表す非常にポジティブな表現です。例えば、困難な環境で成功するや、植物が豊かな土壌でよく育つといった状況を説明する際に使われ、人、組織、植物、さらには地域社会まで幅広い文脈で使用されます。
Which is where their forwards really thrive. And then instantly plays an outrageous ball.
アウトレイジは、北野武の映画のタイトルでもあるアウトレイジのように、暴力や荒々しさを直接意味することは英語では限定的で、通常は特に不公平や不道徳な行為に対して人々が感じる激しい怒りや憤慨を中心とする感情的な意味で使われることが多いです。アウトレイジャスは非常識な、許しがたいという否定的な意味で使われる一方で、驚くべきや途方もないといった肯定的なニュアンスで使われることもあります。スポーツでは驚異的なパフォーマンスを表現するのにぴったりの言葉です。
And then instantly plays an outrageous ball. It's not a hit and hope with Tanaka.
ヒット&ホープというフレーズは計画や狙いがないまま成功を期待して何かを試みる状況を表現する言葉です。特にサッカーではゴールや味方を意識せずにとりあえず蹴るようなプレーを指しますが、日常会話でも運任せや行き当たりばったりという意味で使われます。
It's not a hit and hope with Tanaka. And he constantly evades pressure.
イベードは敵の攻撃をかわす、責任を回避する、あるいは規則を巧みに逃れるといった意味を持つ動詞で、スポーツではディフェンダーやタックルをかわすプレーを指し、日常生活や法的文脈では責任や義務を避ける行動として使われます。
And he constantly evades pressure. He occupies practically all areas of the pitch, barring the final third.
バーリングは、主に何々を除いて、や、何々がなければ、という条件や例外を示す際に使われる便利な言葉です。日常会話からビジネス、スポーツまで幅広く使われ、予測や条件を強調する場面で役立ちます。
He occupies practically all areas of the pitch, barring the final third. And even encroaching at the final third.
インクローチは他人の領域や権利、空間に徐々に入り込むことを表す動詞で、スポーツではルールの侵害、社会では環境や私生活への侵食を示す場合に使われます。この言葉は何かが意図せず進出している状況を描写するのに最適です。
and even encroaching the final third. And even encroaching the final third is almost a ploy to just control the game.
プロイは特定の目的を達成するための巧妙な作戦や策略を指します。スポーツでは試合を有利に進めるための戦術を表し、ビジネスでは顧客の関心を引くためのマーケティング手法を指すことがあります。場合によっては、ずる賢さや抜け目のない工夫といったニュアンスも含まれます。
Is almost a ploy to just control the game. Is almost a ploy to just control the game. Really, really good job of imposing himself on the opposition.
インポーズは何かを課すや押し付けるという意味を持つ動詞で、法律やルールを導入する際に使われるほか、日常会話では相手に迷惑や負担をかけることを避けたい場合にも用いられます。スポーツの文脈では、選手が強い存在感を発揮し、試合に大きな影響を与える場面を表現する際に使われることもあります。
Really, really good job of imposing himself on the opposition. Really, really good job of imposing himself on the opposition. He's not massively stocky.
ストッキーは、主に体型を説明する際に使われ、特に背が低めでがっしりとした力強さや頑丈さを感じさせる体格を指します。肯定的なニュアンスでは、筋肉質で安定感のある印象を持つ選手を評価する際によく使われ、文脈によっては、ずんぐりむっくり、といった少し鈍重な印象を与える場合もありますが、その特徴的な体型が注目されている点には変わりありません。動物や物に対して使うこともあり、例えばがっしりした犬や頑丈そうな家具を表現する際にも使用されます。
He's not massively stocky. He's not massively stocky. And I'm not discrediting Ampadu's passing range there.
ディスクレディットは信用を失わせるや評判を傷つけるという意味で使われます。例えば、スキャンダルが会社の評判を落としたり、虚偽の情報が主張の信頼性を損なう場合などに使用され、名詞としては信用失墜や不名誉を表す際にも使われます。特定の出来事や行動が信頼や評価にどのような影響を与えるかを表現するのに非常に効果的です。
I'm not discrediting Ampadu's passing range there. And I'm not discrediting Ampadu's passing range there. Now to round things off.
ラウンドオフという表現は何かをまとめるや締めくくるという意味で使われるフレーズで、例えば、プレゼンをスムーズに終わらせる場面や、一日の締めくくりを表現する際に適しています。数学では、四捨五入するという意味でも使われ、日常生活からビジネスまで幅広い文脈で活用される便利な言葉で。
Now to round things off.
いかがでしたか？もうすでにこのバーンリーファンが田中碧を完全に認めているように感じますね。確かにスタッツを見ても、プレーを見ても、プレミアリーグレベルであり、チャンピオンシップでプレーしている方が不思議だというのは、リーズファン以外でも同じように感じているようですね。唯一弱点があるとすれば、身長と空中戦デュエルだとも言っていますが、それ以外の弱点がないという表現であり、しかもそれも問題になっていないと言っています。ボールロストの少なさは、ボール扱いのうまさ、パスの受け方のうまさ、ポジショニングのうまさ、パスのうまさ、体の使い方のうまさと、それ以外のうまさをすべて兼ね備えたとも言えるような内容でした。デュエルについては、プレミアリーグではフィジカルの強さがさらに求められるのかもしれませんが、今の田中碧でもどれくらいやれるのか、プレミアでも通用するのか、プレミアでプレーしている田中碧をやっぱり見たいという気持ちが強くなってきますね。リーズファンだけでなく、他のチームにも田中碧の素晴らしさが漏れ伝わっている状況のようですので、また今後の活躍とファンの反応を楽しみにしたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。